Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of our ListView tutorial. In this part we're going to continue where we left off from our last tutorial. Let's do a quick recap just to refresh our memory. So we had quite a few, well, like 3-4 examples. In the first example we have seen a simple plain list view with just one line of code, where we declare the list view and set the item source and then display member path. Okay, just with one line of code we created the list view and hooked up to data source. Okay, and the next example we used an item template and we used a stack panel we displayed 2 properties instead of 1 as opposed to the first example. And we use stack panel to contain 2 text blocks. And as third example, we also used the item template, but we used a more complicated layout with a grid and a border and child stack panel and all that good stuff. And finally, we also seen how to use the image as a background in the third example. Well, in third and fourth example. This one actually was image with item template with image. The last example, which is this guy here, we used the item template and the items panel template. We displayed the items horizontally and then the rest of the remainder of the rows went down below, continued on the second line, and so on. Alright, so let's go ahead and comment this section out that we used for our last example, and we are going to start a new example. Okay, so I'm gonna create another list view. I'm going to open closed, and let's copy the item source from previous example. Okay, now we have our item source right here, and I'm going to leave that there. For this one we are going to use a different layout. So I'm going to use this property ListView.view to create our new let's say item template. Well, it's not an item template, it's just GridView. We are going to display data as a grid view. It's similar to a data grid, but it doesn't have the functionality, so it's for viewing purposes it's perfect. If you don't want that extra functionality that data grid supplies, this one is perfect. Alright, so grid view. So first ListView.view. Next we add the grid view, declare the grid view, and inside grid view we have to declare the columns. So we're going to say GridView.columns, open close, and here we're going to start adding our columns. So GridView.column. Let's give it a header. Let's say the first column will be ID column, and the display member binding will be bound to ID. Okay, relatively quite simple. So now we got the ID column and we have the data. Okay, likewise, if it's just text, we continue doing the same thing. I mean, ID column is just text. Likewise, the artist, the song, the title. Let's say that this one is title. Same thing. It's just text, so binding title. And let's actually copy and paste this stuff instead of repeating ourselves. Let's just copy and paste and change the values. So the next one will be and say genre, and let's bind to genre, and the next one will be release year or just year. Let's bind it to release year or my misspelled reseal year, and format this to string.format, just years only. Okay, let's add the rest of them, and the next one will be artist column. Oops, let's bind this to artist, and I think we have URL coming up, so URL, or you can say website here, which are not correct website, just so you know. I think I mentioned this before, but in case there are people that are new, just started watching, these are just made up websites. Okay, we'll bind this to URL. Alright, so I think we got pretty much everything. Let's actually check our properties. Got the ID, we got the title, we got the artist, soundtrack. Do I want this? Yeah, let's do it. Let's add soundtrack before the movie title. Genre, release year, we got all this rest of stuff, and then we have this guy here. This is going to be the tricky one. Alright, so let's get the add the, what was it again? Soundtrack. So soundtrack should be before the, well, movie title. We didn't add the movie title yet, so okay, that's cool. So let's add the soundtrack, and the property we're looking for is soundtrack, and then movie title, and it's going to be bound to movie title. Okay, so let's build this and run it. Okay, build succeeds. Let's run this and see what we get. Alright, beautiful. Let's expand this, resize our window. Alright, so we got our ID column, title column. Again, if you double click this, nothing happens, unlike data grid. Data grid is, you know, it's a different animal. So we got the title, we got the genre, we got the years, artist, and all the titles are beautifully centered. Unless you want something else, then you can set the style, change it with style. That's up to you. And we have the soundtrack. I mean, look at this one here. With data grid, it was giving us checkbox. Here we are getting the values. So we got a couple of differences right off the bat. Right, then next we have that movie title, which is great. So next comes the artist, which is a list of artists, right? So this property, the artist property. So let's bind that as well. We can bind that a couple of ways. We can either use another list view or list box or a combo box. So that's totally up to us. It's not going to be as simple as these columns here, so it's going to need a little more work. So let's hit enter here and to gain some space. So let's declare add grid view column. and let's create a header. So this is the header, will be artists. So here we can't use the display member path because it's a collection too. The property itself is a collection. So I'm going to close this, open close. Inside our GridView.column, I'm going to add a cell template. Okay, open close, and inside our template we're going to declare a data template, and our data goes into data template. So again, we can use a combo box, list box, a list view. What else? We can use a data grid if we want to. You know what? Maybe we should use data grid. Data grid. Let's try it. Okay, and let's set the item source to binding artists. Let's close this out, see what happens. Let's go ahead and run this. Oops, I think I messed up. Let's see. Of course. Why is that closing? Data grid item source. I deleted something by mistake, I think. Let's back it up. Alright. Oh wow. Messed up big time. Alright. Good thing we have Control Z. Alright, so let's reset the item source, binding to artists, and let's check that out. Alright, so now we have a grid view, data grid instead of in place of the artist collection. Okay, I'm not sure if that's good. So I'm going to change that to a list view probably, or a list box. Let's do a list box. Okay. Let's run this again. And now, when we do a list box, now we have to define the, we just got the class, property name. So now we need to display, specify the display member path. Okay, so display member path, it's going to be name, and that's it. So now we can see the names showing up here. Let's run this. Okay, not bad, but it needs a little more work. So I want to get rid of those, the border. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's set the border thickness to 0 and get rid of the border. When we don't have data, at least we have blank, we have nothing there, so which is better than having a empty border. Alright, this is much better, I think. Alright, beautiful. Let's try a combo box too, see which one looks better. I like the list box, but combo box, let's try combo box. And I think we don't have to worry about the border here, maybe. Well, actually, let's try with that without the border, see what happens. Let's expand this, and the blank ones comes blank. If there's data in there, shows up in the combo box. I think I'm gonna stick with the list box. Let's change this back to list box. Or we can use the list view as well. It's pretty much the same thing in this case. Let's run this again. Alright, so there you have it. So now we got a different layout, a completely different look than what we had in other examples. So this is ListView with using data GridView. GridView. Okay. So let's go ahead and place this inside a region as well. Control KS. Let's say view with GridView. Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, so let's continue with our next example. Okay, I'm gonna comment this last example out, and well, that wasn't it. Okay. All right, so our next example will be a little different, and for this I'm going to bring in something called collection view. So it's going to be about grouping items together. All right, so window resources. Let's declare our resources. So what I'm looking for is collection view source. We are going to need a key. Let's call this CVS for collection view source. And I need a source. Source will be our binding, which is our song list. So that's the collection we are working with. Okay, let's close this. Next, I'm going to need to declare a collection view source group descriptions, and inside here I need to set the property group description and the property name. We're going to group our data based on genre. That's the most common piece of data that our songs share, so it makes sense to group by genre, right? Okay, so let's add a new list view. Let's actually give some space here. One more. So list view. Let's see. Let's close this actually. This time the item source is going to be a little different than before. So we are still going to use binding, and this time I need the path. So the path will be groups. Okay, and the source will be static resource CVS. So the source ties into here. Okay. Alright, so now that we have that in place, actually let me break this line here so we can see it. Alright, again, once we have that in place, let's add ListView view, and here we're going to add a grid view. Inside our grid view we need columns. Let's add a column. So the first column will be genre. That's going to be which ties everything together as the common piece of data. Okay, so display member path. Let's see. That will be binding name. I think that's it. Maybe not. Let's build this, see what happens. There it is. Okay, now as you can see, we have a bunch of this, but it only picked up only one of each, right? So that means we are on the right track. Okay. All right, next column, it's going to be it's going to be a little different too. So for this, we are going to use cell template, because now the rest of the data is actually a collection of data. So data template, and inside data template I need items control, and item controls, let's see, I need to set the item source. Item source, it's going to be, let's see, the item source is going to be binding items. Okay, I'm going to need an item template and another data template, and now we can use text block safely, I think, and it's going to be bound to first column, let's say the title, right? Title. I think we're not gonna have the IntelliSys for this example. Let's see, column is set. Oh, it should be inside the columns. Let me cut this and paste right here, and voila, we got it. I think our data is populating. That's a good news. Those are fakers. Let's build this once and run it. Beautiful. All right, now we managed to group our data based on genre. In the meantime, we forgot the title here. Let's add that too, and let's add the rest of the columns. I don't know why that error shows up here, but it works fine. I don't know. Alright, so we're going to ignore that for now. Sometimes when you restart Visual Studio, kind of clears those, so, but I'm not gonna do it right now. Alright. The other thing that may clear this, let's try, actually just popped in my head. Let's clean the solution. Sometimes that helps too. Okay, and got rid of one of them. Ooh, rebuild again. Let's rebuild the solution. Alright, yep. Seems like, apparently clean solution works too. Yeah, so between restarting Visual Studio, clear the solution. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the column header here for this guy, and it's going to be title. Now actually that mistake I made kind of explains why the IntelliSys maybe didn't work, right? So we'll find out in a minute. So let's add the next column before the columns tag. We could just copy paste this stuff too, actually. Let's copy and paste here. Since it's only, we're going to change a couple of things. So instead of title, we'll use, let's see, title artist, and change the binding to artist. Still no IntelliSense. Interesting. But we get real-time response here when it works. Let's rebuild this and rerun it. Beautiful. Okay, let's add a couple more properties and then we'll call it a day. Alright, so next one will be year. Messed up again. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, year. And this one will be release year. Now, without IntelliSense, I'm not sure if I'm going to spell this property right because I messed up to begin with. There it is, we got it. Alright, and format it to Y. Awesome. Where did the header go? Okay, it's centered, that's why. Let's rebuild this again so things can sync up. Awesome. Alright, let's add what else we have left? Movie title. Let's add the movie title and change the byting to movie title. Awesome. Alright, let's rerun this. See if we have any space left. Yeah, still got space for another column here. Maybe we can add the URL as well. Right, but so far so good. Once you get the first one going, the rest it's pretty much very easy. Alright, so this is going to be URL, or you can call it website, but the property is URL. So there it is. Beautiful. Let's run this one more time. Awesome. I think we're in good shape here. Alright, so this will be that for this example. I guess let's call it a day until the next one. Alright, take it easy. I'll see you next time.